G'day, ZiggyD here. So, thanks to all of your guys' awesome feedback on my last Pathfinder video where I just talked a bit about me and Amy getting into Pathfinder. I've decided that I'll continue this same sort of thing, and I'll bring you guys a bit of a DM vlog. So, talk about things from my perspective as the DM, recap a bit what happens each session that we play, and maybe talk about some of the interesting lessons or things that I had to do as a DM to make things run smoothly and make things interesting for Amy or Elspeth to play in the world. So last session we left off with Elspeth just having created a fence to trap the dire rat up in the jungle. An epic fence at that. She rolled a 20 on a strength check and made a intense fence that no rat would ever be able to get through. She'd also learned that the guard that she'd spoken to earlier and pointed in the direction of 3 suspicious humans had gone missing. So she'd also done some exploration of the 2 temples, the Moonsong Temple and the Temple of Ifrit, and discovered some interesting things about those, but hadn't really quite solved the puzzles there. So the first session was a lot of talking, a lot of exploration, and a lot of learning about the location that she was. So it kind of set us up well for an action-packed second session. So the first thing that she did was we started the session with her being woken up at around 4 AM in the morning by a dart hitting her in the chest. Someone had poked their little blowgun through one of the 3 suspicious humans quite clearly and shot her with a poisoned dart that quickly put her to sleep. She had a few seconds to decide to do something. I was thinking when I was sort of designing this little encounter here that she'd probably try to conceal a knife. But instead, very druidic of her, she decided to instead make sure that Nook was safe. So she made him hide under the bed. And then with the few seconds she had left, she actually threw her knife at the window. Didn't really hit anything, but it was an attempt. So she passed out. Now the reason I did this was this whole 3 suspicious humans thing was not anything that I expected anything to come out of, basically. It was just sort of a happy accident, which I think happens a lot in DMing. I'm getting the sense that sort of thing happens a lot. So we had to follow along with it. So in the break between our first and second session, I had to design sort of like a reason for them to be there, what they were doing, why they were suspicious, and why the guard went missing. So I designed this backstory for them, that they were 3 kind of inept, but have had a fairly long history of poaching the pilgrims off the island. So a lot of the pilgrims aren't really very good fighters, or they're not particularly threatening. They have a lot of wealth, so it makes sense that there would be some people that sort of prey on these fairly innocent people, essentially. So they're kind of dirty about it too. They use poison darts to make pilgrims that are heading back from the Temple of Ifrit late at night to poison them and then take them and take their stuff usually, and they don't kill people too often, but they have done it in the past. So since Elspeth pointed the town guard in their direction, they had to get the heat off them a little bit. So they had kidnapped the town guard, knocked him unconscious, and dragged him back to their cave, which I designed my little cave here. I knew that since a lot more attention would be paid to these guys, I had to also roll their character stats. So I created a little bit of more information about the 3 suspicious humans. There was 2, a younger one, a sort of like a very henchman one who didn't really talk too much, and then the leader who was a bit taller and a bit stronger. So I gave them a lot of information just in case she got to talking to them a lot, and I had to have a bit of a backstory for them. So she wakes up, a few minutes later, and she's been dragged through the water. She was woken up by the cold water on her feet because she's been dragged along the beach, and she gets dragged towards this cave. This is the way I was thinking it would play out, was she'd get dragged to the cave, and in the cave I set up that there was sharp obsidian glass all throughout the cave, basically, and that she would potentially be able to use that to escape her bonds. But instead she rolled a strength check again, her strength is 9 for reference, so that's very low if you're not familiar with this. And so she rolled a strength check and was able to overpower him and spin around and grab him with the rope. He took a stab at her, but it wasn't quite successful, and she, I believe, grabbed one of his poison darts and used her pickpocketing technique to grab the poison dart and stab him with it, and putting him to sleep. So instead, is that not quite what happened? What happened?
I ran away and he threw a dart at me, but he
Ah.
my hand.
Even better, even better. That's not that it. Thank you. She was napping behind me, but I guess she was woken up by my storytelling and me telling falsities. What actually happened was far, far better. So she broke free and attempted to run away. He went to throw one of his darts at her and rolled a 1 on his dart throw and threw it into his own hand, putting him to sleep fairly quickly. So then she took him prisoner, having this sleeping guy dragging him, and she was approached by... She had tried to drag him back to town. I thought she'd probably drag him to the cave to see if her guard friend was there, but she dragged him back to town and was approached by the other 2 of the 3 humans there, and had a bit of a standoff. Now, I thought... I actually planned that they wouldn't be in the cave, that the first guy who had kidnapped her would take her back to the cave and she'd have some time to escape before the other 2 returned. So this kind of actually worked out very realistic in a sense, because she bumped into them on the way back. Now, I don't exactly remember how it happened, but she managed to talk them into basically taking their weapons off, taking their clothes off, going back to the cave, having one of them drag the unconscious and bleeding out guard back to the edge of town, and stand there naked, and then did a trade. Basically, she gave them their friend back and she left, and they were clothesless and weaponless and couldn't really do anything about it. So that didn't go at all like I expected. She managed to use her roguelike charms and her fairly peaceful nature, I guess a bit of a druidic side coming through there, to diffuse the situation with some excellent talking skills. So I awarded her a fair bit of experience for diffusing that situation like that and talking her way out of... It was a crazy situation, making the best of it essentially. So she heads back to town, takes the injured guard back to town, has help stabilizing him, and tells the other guard in town about... she kind of lies to him about that she had been knocked unconscious, so she'd woken up and found the guard and dragged him back, and then didn't see the other people. But she says, maybe she'll track them down. I guess she was giving herself some time to think. So I believe the next day was when you hunted them down, or did you go do the rat first? Did you go back to the temple first?
No, the next day I went.
Okay.
I asked if I'd get a reward first.
Yes, okay, so she lied first and then asked if she'd get a reward. The other guard informed her that a suitable bounty would be levied if she, had some information or was able to assist in their capture, because, there's the potential that these people have been operating and being criminals for quite a long time in this island, so, poaching a lot of innocent pilgrims. So she did indeed, track them down and led... The guard that she was talking to and a fresh guard that come back to town, sort of in the trade over, obviously. There's always got to be 2 guards in this town, so the military sent another guard over, and they went and approached the cave. They went into the cave, and the smallest of the 3 was inside the room in the cave, and just with a dagger, and he surrendered fairly quickly and backed up into the room, obviously setting up a little bit of a trap. So one of the guards went into the room and, arrested him, essentially. And then the other 2 of the 3 suspicious humans rounded the corner and engaged with them. And I believe Amy Elsbeth took a arrow to the shoulder quite nicely, dropping very low in HP. And Nook got in on the fray. This is where we first start to see hints that perhaps Nook has a little bit of hidden bloodlust, because he engaged one of the injured bandits and was quite vicious, scratching at and clawing at his face and things like that. And it ended up with 2 of the 3 bandits being killed. One was stabbed through the eye brutally. The leader was stabbed through the eye brutally. The other one had died from his wounds. And the third one had surrendered. The weakest of the 3 had surrendered. So she kind of really dominated that situation. And she was actually ended up being awarded a fairly hefty bounty of 200 gold from that there. So her first real income after being poor for quite long and, just scabbing for a few gold here and there. She was finally able to get a nice significant amount of gold out of that. So that went surprisingly well. You handled that situation pretty well. The next thing she had to do was go and uncover the secrets of the 2 temples. So she head up to her fence and had to cut her way through her fence with quite a lot of effort. It was it was an intense fence. And she head towards the temple, and she noticed that a lot of mud tracks were around the temple that weren't there before. So expectedly, the dire rat had been put there and left there. I guess maybe she figured she was going to have to encounter it sooner or later. But after trying the peaceful approach, she instead was forced to fight the dire rat. Now, throughout this entire engagement with the dire rat, she swung wildly, hitting the ground probably about 4 or 5 times. However, Nook unleashed his bloodlust once again and criticaled the rat's tail, biting it off, and later keeping it as a trophy even, and scratching out the rat's eyes and killing the rat single-handedly, essentially. Elspeth had pretty much no role other than distracting the rat temporarily. Unfortunately, Nook during this was bitten by the rat and didn't quite roll a saving throw against disease and was diseased. So he was feeling quite ill and freaking out. Elspeth ran him back to town. And
can you act out how you acted out Nook, please?
she wants me to role play the monkey again. So the monkey was kind of like... It was quite sad, quite heart-wrenching. So she took him back to town and had to spend a good chunk of her hard-earned gold that she just got from, slaying the bandits. So she got a cured disease potion and was able to heal up Nook and, pretty soon head back towards the temple. Now she got to the. Did you go back to the Temple of Ifrit first? You would have had to.
Yes.
Okay, so
I had my vial for my own.
So she went to the Temple of Ifrit, and this time paid very careful attention to the pillars in the temple, and noticed that they weren't connected to the ground. In fact, that they had actually been moved since the last time she was there. So she figured out that these 4 pillars, could be pushed around quite easily. Now that since there was four fire vents, she sort of made the connection that she had to push each of the 4 pillars onto the 4 fire vents, and then after a very quick attempt at praying, the fires turned blue and the pillars turned blue, and it opened up a hidden passage in the floor, stairway leading down, which went to a small room that was a large pool filled with sort of like a liquid fire that wasn't quite hot to the touch, but she used a vial that she purchased earlier and retrieved some of the fire. There was no one else in the temple at this time. Heads back upstairs, takes a pillar off, the entrance takes the pillars off, the entrance closes. No one's the wiser. No one knows the secrets of the Temple of Ifrit yet. Anyway, we'll see. So she takes the vial of Ifrit fire to back to the Elven Temple, the Moonsong Temple, where the little forge is, and places the silver in top of the mold and puts the Ifrit fire in the receptacle, and it crafts a ring, and she does it under the moonlight, and the ring is charged when she takes it out. Now, I have a lot of plans for this ring in terms of what it does, but she doesn't know anything about what it does yet. Although it's fairly obvious, like this isn't much of a spoiler to say it has some sort of power, given the fact that it's glowing when she takes it out of the mold. And she's so far she's uncovered that it glows after being in the moonlight, and but it doesn't glow in the daylight. So there's a fair bit to discover with this ring. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. So this sets up pretty good. Fairly occupied by her task with the ring, she doesn't quite notice the scraping of metal. You might have remember from last week, I mentioned that there was a pile of rusty metal armor in the corner. Well, that armor had awoken, essentially. This armor construct, held together by just sort of like a moonlight-colored power, had materialized behind her in between 2 large pillars, blocking her exit, essentially. She distracts the armor and gives Nook the ring, and Nook bolts out of the temple pretty successfully. The armor's kind of slow. It takes a stomp at Nook, but he manages to get away. Always thinking about the monkey first. Very druidic of her, very druidic. So she engages with this armor and discovers that she can't really do much damage to it. However, the armor also seems to be somewhat incompetent because after trying to punch at her twice, he loses both of his gauntlets from rolling ones, twice in a row actually. So he does manage to, however, smack her upside the head with one of his wrist protectors, and she discovers that she can crit his helmet, and the helmet gets smashed against the wall and falls down. So he's missing 2 gauntlets and a helmet. Now, so here's what I was thinking. There was many ways that she could have dealt with this armor. She could have, slowly taken it down like she was doing, like, hit away each individual piece, basically damaged each individual piece until the power had nothing to hold on to, had no armor to use. Alternatively, she could have used an acid flask from the general store to pour on it, melting it fairly quickly. That would have also worked. Or, she could have come up with her own idea that I hadn't have expected. That sort of thing can happen. And then the other one was the 2 pillars on either side of him weren't actually attached to anything and could have been pushed down on top of him, crushing him in fairly short order. But the way she actually deals with it is to feint to one side successfully, and then leaps over the opposite leg of the armor and runs out the temple. The armor chases her, but gets to the edge of the flagstones of the temple and can't leave. Obviously, his power is tied to the temple, and he can't chase her any far beyond that. So, after fairly successful and action-packed session, she heads back to the inn. At some point she claimed her reward for the successful slaying and dealing with the rat. Gets her bounty from getting thing, and she's got a new fancy ring. Pretty cool and action-packed stuff. I learned a lot about planning out and giving more backstory to different elements in the game, like having a more of idea of the overhead stuff that she doesn't know about and might not encounter directly, but helps me with constructing, thinking about why people might be doing things that they're doing or why they might be there. So in this, I also came up with some ideas of the guards and the army that they are part of, and the backstory behind them. So I have a bit of an idea of that as well, in case that was inquired into. But anyway, the last thing I'm going to leave you guys with is Elspeth has been keeping a journal at the end of her sessions of her plans, and I'm gonna let Amy read that out for you guys. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this DM vlog. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.
The human scum have been dealt with. The Meerhand Guard has paid me quite nicely for it too. Nook has developed a bloodlust for combat, and though he made me proud by defeating the Dierat, I think I need to train him to follow my commands. I uncovered the mystery of the Moonsong Forge and will take this ring back to Moonflow. I will miss Luco, but feel it is time to leave this town.